other part I think that bothered me is the trailers. You remember the trailers? When we
Yes.
saw the trailers, we're like, oh, this could be good.
We were actually excited about this movie.
Correct, because Ford versus Ferrari we like, right? It's just,
We like Michael Mann. He's the man.
He's the man with two N's. I am Teresa. Welcome to Cocoon Cast, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Today we'll be discussing the new movie, Ferrari.
Rebecca, let's get started.
Enzo Ferrari and his wife Laura have a precarious financial situation as their relationship falls apart. Their business, once an iconic Italian auto brand, is on the verge of bankruptcy, which isn't helped by Enzo's recklessness in the racing division and his personal life. However, if the Ferraris manage to win a crucial race, they might just find the resources to revive everything they want to.
Rebecca, you're excited with this movie. Adam Driver,
Adam Driver!
and
Penelope Cruz!
that was kind of a weird one for me. Even though I like her somehow, Adam Driver, who plays Enzo Ferrari. What was your take on that? He was in Gucci not too long ago.
I felt like it was much more Gucci. The Italian accent in the trailer was the major sticking point for me. I was just like, this is so cheesy. It felt like a stereotype of what you'd expect an Italian accent to be.
Wow.
And when we watched the movie, thankfully it was not that bad.
It was better, and I will say when he came out, his hair was gray and slicked back. It didn't feel like Adam Driver with gray hair. It felt like he really was taking on a persona at that point, and I was impressed with that. Then he started to talk, and there were parts that were really easily understood, but there was also some parts that felt almost kind of mumbly.
Keep in mind, we saw this screening in a Dolby Atmos theater, correct?
Let's talk about this. We actually saw this in an early screening, and it was billed with communications from the director. Do you remember this? And what did they talk about? What was their whole bulk of this, hey, early release, and we're going to talk about our movie?
It felt like a 5-minute ad for Dolby Atmos.
It did, and they were saying how great it was. And then it didn't impress me, unfortunately. I wanted to be impressed. I didn't go in there and go, oh, Adam Driver. I liked him in the Star Wars installments. The Gucci movie I was a little less enamored by, even though I like Lady Gaga. The book, in my mind, was better in that. I had a hard time with this one.
I can see that. This is no Marriage Story. This is...
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Penelope Cruz, it's not that I don't like her. I believe, unfortunately, it felt like she had maybe only one or two emotions. She was angry. I understand Enzo had quite the relationships outside of his wife. It sounds like that was kind of an understood. Their relationship felt volatile. I understood she was angry. They had lost their son previously. I don't think that's a spoiler. That's pretty historical. But it just felt like small things. There was a small business decision later in the movie which helped bring her a little bit more dimension in my mind. But it felt flat, and I think part of it was the acting. The other part of it, I think, was the screenplay.
I think so, too. Unfortunately, the screenplay communicated what it needed to communicate to the audience to feel what they were supposed to feel. We were in the screening, and there's one moment, it's pretty obviously telegraphed.
Oh, this is it. I know this. I know this.
I feel like Patton Oswalt in his Jerry Maguire review where he goes, it's a 90-minute lead up to the one punchline, but it's worth it. That's what this movie felt like, because this tense sequence, the slow-mo encroaches, everybody's thinking, oh crap, this is going to happen. Literally, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. The guy goes, oh crap, and you can hear it through the theater just echo.
In Dolby. I laughed because...
I was trying so hard not to laugh.
I know. But the part... I appreciated that this person was very invested in the movie. But
nobody walked out of it. They were so invested.
No, it cracked me up though because it was like, oh no. Because it was. Everyone saw it at the same time. Everybody had the same thought, and it cracked me up because I thought that was more compelling than the actual event. this person's reaction to what was to come.
Well, here's the other thing it says about the movie. It says that you're not taking it seriously enough that you're just like, you release it. And there's different points of release when it comes to movies. There's the gas, the sudden gas, the thing that takes you off guard. And then there's the, crap. It kind of deflates what little tension the filmmakers are trying to preserve. And it just...
You're probably not supposed to laugh at that scene, just to be really clear. But it like you said, it was painful because you had a very strong idea what was going to happen if you don't know the history. Because it's just all of a sudden the camera just goes, and then, oh no. And then chaos ensues, and then it was tragic. This is why I don't narrate. And I'm like, I'm supposed to feel terrible. I'm supposed to feel bad. And I'm over here going, did you have to poke me on the head and just...
Well, even the death scenes just felt comedic. You felt like, okay, cars crashing. There's a mannequin flying out the window.
Well, and there was one scene where one of the drivers, I can't remember if he was the Ferrari or the Maserati or the Fiat, down the hill. And I remember looking around me, and I looked, Box was near me, you were near me. I looked around, our teams around. And they went down the hill, so and it looked like a crash dummy in the vehicle. And I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I looked at that and I thought, oh, you're kidding me, right? It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is a very precarious, dangerous situation. We don't want to kill anybody, so we're going to put we're going to put this little dummy in there. I'm like, it went down the hill. And he was like, oh, I need a ride later. It's just, oh my goodness. It just, ooh. It was just so cheesy, in your words that you've used a lot, and I would love to find a better word for it, but it just felt that way.
It felt geriatric, and I'm not saying this because this movie is filled with old people. I'm saying this because it felt slow. It kind of plodded along. There's only one character that I got really interested in, and half the time that was because the screenplay gave her the most to work with.
Was that his girlfriend?
No.
Oh, ooh, wow. She had a few lines that were compelling.
She did. I will give Shane Woodley props for that. She did.
Yeah, she wasn't too bad.
But I'm talking about Laura Ferrari.
Well, okay, let's talk about that. She, at one point, starts waving a gun. Literally. She had a gun. Yep, no. Frasier reference, sorry. She had a gun. She's waving it around. And there's a certain part where you go, oh, what's she going to do? And the other part of me goes...
Well, she can't kill him. That'd be 20 minutes into the movie.
Well, I know. And I'm thinking, look at my watch. I'm like... Too soon to kill him. And, that's not how he dies. But there should have been more suspense. There should have been more. And she did. She aimed and she fired. And we won't talk about where the bullet went. But he was alive afterwards. Okay.
I felt like she had... This movie would have been a great character study if it would have focused on her. It would have focused on her journey. Her... discovering her husband's betrayal and then flipping the script going, I'm in charge now.
The other thing that I think bothered me is I think many spouses, if their spouse was stepping out on them, would have the same response. Meaning they'd be angry, they'd be hurt, they'd be upset. I don't know about the gun thing. That's a whole other ballgame. But obviously they wouldn't go, yay, I'm so excited, most of them. And I think the thing that challenged it was she said, hey, as long as I don't know, I don't see this person, I don't know who this person is, I'm good. And then there was a part where it came about that she did find out who this person was. And then she went over and she wanted to know. And all of a sudden, now she's mad?
That might have been true to the historical text, though.
I guess so. But I'm just thinking, if you're not mad, you're not mad. But then now you're mad.
Well, now it's personal. Now she knows who it is. And even
she actively sought that out, though, that information.
The first part of the information was not actively sought out. The first part was a slip.
Oh, all right. Remember? No, that's fair. But...
And then it snowballed. That's why he's like, we can't tell anybody. And she's like, well, who else knows? Well, let's see. This person knows. That person knows. That person knows. Oh, crap. Everybody knows.
Well, now, but it almost felt like it was wounding her pride versus I'm with my husband and I love him and I don't want to lose him.
I guess. Yeah, I can see that. some of the acting was a bit uneven, and it didn't help that the screenplay was a bit uneven in some ways.
I think that's true. The actors work with what they had, which, but the other part I think that bothered me is the trailers. You remember the trailers? When we saw the trailers, we're like, oh, this could be good.
We were actually excited about this movie.
Correct, because Ford versus Ferrari we like, right? It's just,
we like Michael Mann. He's the man.
He's the man with two ends. And I think the part that was funny, not funny, funny, not funny, was we went to the early screen and it was packed. And we were laughing. There were a lot of, packs of men that were going. I know it sounds so stereotypical, but the reality was this is what we experienced. They're going in together and they're practically like high-fiving each other. And they're like, yeah, car movie, excited, excited, excited. It's like a movie my brothers would go see, car guys that I know, they would go see it. Totally get it. And all of a sudden it becomes this movie about the loss of his son, his infidelity with his wife. And then, oh, wait a minute, there's a couple of racing scenes. And we didn't grab people afterwards and say, hey, were you surprised at this? But I kind of got the feeling that they were expecting more of a racing movie, more of a Ford versus Ferrari kind of a movie. And it wasn't that way at all. It was very relational.
But, okay, I made this argument on our way back to the studio.
Sure.
That Mann uses the action as a distraction. Not because it rhymes, but he uses the action as a distraction. It's something that get you hooked. And it's like, hey, we're going to be doing this awesome sequence. But he builds up his characters. I feel like it was unevenly balanced in terms of character work.
I would agree.
That would have made it a stronger movie for me.
I would agree with that. Part of the challenge I had as, doing some information, looking into it, a ton of producers.
How many did you say? Like at least 5?
Oh gosh, more than that. And I think that was the part that was the challenging for me too, because I'm thinking, okay, there's 12 producers, 6 production companies, 1 screenwriter. Which
feels like a tagline for a movie. 6 production companies, 10 screenwriters.
To me, oftentimes that creates a scattered movie, or as you were saying, an uneven movie.
What this movie could have been interesting to me is if you divide it in 2 halves.
I would agree with that. And honestly, I think the second part was actually better than the first half.
Oh yeah, no, I think, and I don't think that's because we saw the tension come to roost, as it were.
Correct.
I feel like there was more attention to detail in terms of the character's emotional mapping. Mm-hmm. And that may be because the performers finally found their groove with the screenplay, and the opening half of the screenplay feels very bare bones. It's like, this is what you need to know. There's very little room for teasing, I guess you could say.
I think part of the problem was, as you said, it wasn't, oh, now we know them, now we care kind of a thing. I think the challenge was the movie overall felt very predictable. And I don't fancy myself a screenwriter, director, any of those things. But to me, it's not particularly original if you know what's going to happen, or you can pretty much verbalize what's going to happen. It's not like, oh, well, you know the history, so you're going to know. It's, no, I know what the actors are going to say, because it's not overly original or surprising in the manner in which they say it. Yeah, that's a disappointment to me.
There's some stuff it felt like it was, how do I say this? Shoehorned to act as a placeholder for a character.
I would agree with that 100%.
There's a lot of emotional shorthand in this movie, and I feel like a lot of telling versus showing let us, as the audience, come to our conclusions about the characters, because in some ways it makes those performances richer.
And not excluding the guy that went, oh no!
Yes.
Yeah, he was telling. Do we have any questions from the box?
With Ferrari being synonymous with speed and cars and excitement, it felt to me like this movie was basically the opposite. Why do you think Michael Mann went in that direction as opposed to projecting some of the Ferrari brand so that the fans might enjoy it more?
I think the problem is when you have a director like Michael Mann, who normally knows how to focus your attention on one spot, the problem with this movie is it didn't know where to look. And I think that's part of the consequences of having this film in man's head for so long. It feels like there's something missing. And this whole movie, I just felt like I was watching half of a movie still in production. Like, hey, here's the demo tape. What do you think of this scene? Even the lack of music actively worked against this movie.
I would agree with that. I also think, as we've said before, some movies feel like little vignettes. It did feel like there were a few stories that followed through, right? The relationship, one of his drivers went a little bit further, but it felt choppy. And when you said it felt like a student project, it's not to be disrespectful in that, but like you said, it didn't feel like a fleshed out thought or the whole story. It's like, I have an idea. And I think the movie was disabled in that respect, that it just, like you said, had so many ideas. Nothing went too far. And even the finale that was so dramatic just had so little screen time. It was like, and then here's the resolve. And, movie's done. I was disappointed with that. But it did have end credits, or not end credits, but it had the epilogue at the end.
Had the epilogue.
At least they had the epilogue.
The other thing I liked about Ford versus Ferrari that they got really close to doing in this movie. So they got really close to poking at the perfect veneer that is the brand that they're representing. I feel like there needed to be a little bit more jabbing to show that the Ferraris really are in trouble. It's not just, oh, we've lost a few races, we're not making enough cars.
That's good.
You have to poke at, you have to show this empire crumbling before you as an audience can get invested in its rebuilding.
That's a great point. The other part that comes to my mind is this was billed as the biographical sports drama, right? Cinderella Man, Ford versus Ferrari, Rudy, Iron Claw we just saw. I think for me, and I would love to have our cinema community comment below, what's their favorite biographical sports drama? Because to me, this one just fell short. And I like that genre, even though, right, I don't race, I don't wrestle, I don't box, I don't play football, right? None of those things I do. And I was so disappointed that it didn't feel even to me, even though obviously the drama can take precedent. I just think this movie just didn't do a great job on either front.
I think that's really tough, especially when you have the key actor in this film performing a role where it doesn't feel like there's a bridge between these two sides unless there needs to be.
Do we have any other questions from the box?
If someone goes into this movie thinking it's really a story about Ferrari's life, his personal life, and not as much about the racing and all of that, do you think they'll be happy with this movie? Or do you think there's still problems with it even in that kind of a context?
I think they're going to be a lot happier than the folks that are looking for this as the story of the race that occurs during this movie. That being said, I feel like they're going to be a little annoyed with how much of the story is predicated on the race.
I think it was a snapshot, which most movies are, but it felt like it was the death of his son, his marriage, and it's kind of like his marriage was like the big one. Death of his son definitely was close. That was discussed. And then the crumbling of the company, if financially they don't win this really important race. It to me, that sort of summed it up for me. That's it. Even in the relational part, I think it was disappointing. But as you said, if that's what you're expecting, you will be more satisfied, I think, going in. I would agree with that. Rebecca, it is that time of the show. 5 racing moss. Oof.
That's never a good sign.
That's never a good sign. What do you think? 1 to 5?
2.
2. Ooh, number 1 reason.
This movie is an exercise in wasted potential from a team of really talented people. Oof. And I'm really sad to say that, but I can't, in good conscience, recommend this movie.
Not worth a watch?
If you're going to watch it, wait till streaming.
Oof, okay.
You might pass out.
I would say, yeah, it is a bit boring. I would say 1 to 5. I'm with you on this one. I think it's a 2 moth movie. agreed that there's a team, a highly competent team, but it just missed it. I agree with them missing the mark. And to me, it was boring. I know recently we've talked about Iron Claw, watched that, wanted to learn more, resonated, 2, 3, 4, 5 days later, still talking about remembering it, remembering other parts of it. This one is forgettable to me.
There's some pretty funny comedic bits, but yeah, no.
Yeah, I would say if you're interested, the watch would be, as you said, the streaming. But like you said, I don't know that I would recommend it. It's going wide release on Christmas. I still don't think, I think there are better movies out there at this point.
And that's the problem we have with a movie when it comes out. Mm-hmm. We're actively comparing it to the landscape that is.
Yes.
And that everything that's come before it too.
Correct. And there is that part of it. Thanks for joining us. We're always excited to create experiences to bring our cinema community together.
Watch the notifications for a review of the new movie, Poor Things. Then come back to the channel this weekend for a weekly show, Movies and More, where we will have more movie reviews, the latest Hollywood news, and commentary with snark, meant to amuse.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share our channel.
If you enjoyed this movie review, you might click the link to check out our review of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, or click the other link to watch last week's show where we reviewed The Iron Claw.
Remember, cinema community movies are better together. Thanks for watching. See you in the next review.